You wanted a deep dive into Edmond Germaine.
And boy, are you in for a treat. This 19th century French novel.
It's like Jane Austen meta mystery.
Threw in some Downton Abbey family drama.
And then set the whole thing.
Against the backdrop of Italy and Corfu. Intrigued.
I thought so.
Let's unravel this tale together.
So what's so fascinating about Germaine?
Well, about uses this seemingly lighthearted setup
to delve into some pretty
serious social commentary.
Okay.
You'll see him critiquing French society's obsession with wealth and status.
Right from the start.
Yeah.
Okay, set the scene for us.
Who is Germaine?
And what kicks off this whole drama?
So Germaine is our protagonist.
Young, beautiful.
But unfortunately very ill.
Okay.
Her family, the de la Tour d'Ambleuse,
Were once a proud.
noble family.
But now they're struggling financially.
Now they see a way out of their predicament through
Wait for it.
an arranged marriage for Germaine.
Ah, the classic arranged marriage trope.
Right.
But I bet there's more to it than just finding Germaine a husband.
You're absolutely right, because remember, we're in 19th century France. Arranged marriages were often more about consolidating power and wealth.
Than finding true love.
Exactly.
And in Germaine's case...
her family is desperate to restore their financial standing.
Okay.
So
enter Don Diego.
The Spanish nobleman in need of an heir.
So Germaine's basically a pawn in this game of wealth and inheritance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Don Diego needs a legitimate heir to secure his inheritance. And his mother, the Countess, orchestrates this whole marriage of convenience.
Wow.
They see Germaine's noble lineage as the perfect fit.
Even though she's in poor health.
Even though she's in poor health, yeah.
It's a pretty stark portrayal of...
how women were often viewed as commodities in these types of social transactions.
Yeah.
You know?
It's like that old saying...
marry rich, my child.
taken to a whole new level.
A whole new level.
But where does the family doctor...
Dr. Lebris.
fit into all of this?
He's a pivotal character in this whole setup. He's the family physician.
So he knows...
He knows just how dire Germaine's health is.
Okay.
And here's the kicker.
Okay.
He's actually the one who suggests this marriage to the Duke,
The Duke.
Germaine's father.
Wait, the doctor suggests marrying off his sick patient? That seems counterintuitive?
It might seem that way,
Yeah.
but his reasoning is interesting.
Okay.
He believes that securing the family's financial future might be the only way to save Germaine's life.
Okay.
With money, they can afford better treatment, a change of environment, or anything that might improve her chances.
So it's a morally gray area.
Right.
You can see the desperation.
Yes.
But it also highlights just how transactional relationships can be.
Society, yeah.
But what about Don Diego? Is he just a heartless fortune hunter?
That's what's so clever about character development.
Okay.
Don Diego starts off entirely motivated by duty and inheritance.
Uh-huh.
He has no real feelings for Germaine.
Okay.
But as the story progresses,
Yeah.
his feelings start to evolve.
Okay. In ways he never expected.
Interesting.
About peels back the layers of his character. A complexity that keeps you guessing.
I love a character with hidden depths.
Yeah.
But before we dive too deep into Don Diego, we need to talk about Madame Chermedy.
Madame Chermedy.
She's been described as one of the most captivating
And morally ambiguous.
characters in the novel.
She's a force of nature.
Okay.
A wild card, you could say.
Okay.
She's actually Don Diego's former lover
Oh,
and the mother of his son, Little Gomez.
okay.
When she finds out about Don Diego's marriage to Germaine,
She's furious.
she's furious.
I can imagine betraying.
Heartbroken.
That's where About throws you another curveball.
Okay.
Madame Chermedy isn't upset because of lost love.
Interesting.
She's furious because this marriage jeopardizes her son's claim to Don Diego's inheritance,
Oh.
the Villanera fortune.
So she's motivated by power and securing a future for her son.
Yeah,
This woman sounds like she plays hardball.
absolutely. She's not going to let some sickly girl stand in her way.
No.
And this sets the stage for a clash of wills and ambitions.
That drives much of the drama in the novel.
It does.
Okay, so the marriage happens.
Germaine gets whisked off to Italy with Don Diego and his mother.
They travel to all these incredible cities.
Nice. Florence, Rome, Naples.
Sounds like a dream honeymoon, right?
It would be. Yeah. Despite this amazing change of scenery,
True.
remains unwell
Yeah.
and indifferent to the wonders around her.
Wow.
About people actually uses the Italian landscape,
Which is often associated with
beauty and vitality.
to highlight Germaine's declining health.
It's true.
It's like her internal struggle is reflected in the external world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's particularly striking in her reaction to Rome. She describes it as a vast necropolis.
Wow.
Drawing a parallel between the city's ancient ruins and her own feelings of mortality.
It's pretty heavy stuff.
It is.
So not exactly a romantic getaway for Germaine.
It's not.
What happens next?
Well, the Countess decides to get Germaine away from the distractions of city life.
Hoping a change of pace might help her.
Hoping a change of pace might help her.
Wow.
They end up at a remote villa in Corfu.
The Villa Dandolo.
Ah, the Villa Dandolo. Tell us about this place.
It's a picturesque ruin.
Almost like a...
reflection of Germaine's fragile state.
Right.
But it's also surrounded by the beauty of Corfu.
All that natural splendor.
All that natural splendor, yeah.
So the Countess is hoping that this environment might have a positive effect on Germaine.
Perhaps subconsciously?
And does it? Does Germaine start to improve at the Villa Dandolo?
She does. This is where we start to see a glimmer of hope for Germaine.
I love that.
The fresh air.
The slower pace of life.
Even the new relationships she forms.
Yeah.
All of it contributes to her recovery.
Okay.
She connects with the Dandolo family who owned the villa and befriends Dr. Delviniotis, a kind chemist, and his daughter.
Okay.
They create a sense of community that Germaine was missing. So there's a sense of healing, both physically and emotionally, happening for Germaine.
Right.
But I'm feeling there's more to this villa than meets the eye.
You're always one step ahead.
The arrival of a new servant, hired by the Countess.
Adds another layer of intrigue.
Okay.
We later find out he's a former convict with a dark secret and a hidden agenda.
Orchestrated by...
Guessed it.
Madame Chermedy.
Madame Chermedy.
Oh, wow. Madame Chermedy is back in the picture.
Pulling strings from the shadows.
What's her game plan this time?
Hold on tight.
Okay.
Because here's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
While Germaine is at the villa, news arrives from China about a shocking incident
involving
a French naval commander named Chermedy.
Chermedy. Could this be Madame Chermedy's husband?
Exactly.
But how does news from China even reach them?
And that's a crucial detail.
Okay.
Remember, this is the 19th century. We're talking pre-telegraph, pre-instant communication.
Yeah.
News traveled slowly, often through letters carried by ships.
Okay.
And the letters from China reveal that Commander Chermedy,
Madame Chermedy's husband,
has been murdered.
Oh, no. That's terrible.
Yeah.
What were the circumstances of his death?
The letters describe a dispute over a trade agreement, corrupt officials, ultimately a brutal execution for Commander Chermedy.
Wow.
The details are pretty gruesome.
This must be a devastating blow for Madame Chermedy.
It is.
How does she react to this news?
At first, she's genuinely grief-stricken.
Okay.
She even has a moment of reflection about her own actions and the choices she's made.
Wow.
But that grief quickly transforms into a burning desire for revenge.
Okay.
And she sees an opportunity to manipulate the Duke using this tragedy.
Now that sounds like the Madame Chermedy we've come to expect.
It does, doesn't it?
So how does she use this tragedy to her advantage?
She goes to the Duke, playing the grieving widow card to the hilt. She portrays herself as alone and vulnerable, relying on his guilt and infatuation to gain control of his finances.
So she uses this tragedy to gain even more control.
She does.
So it is making a comment about how easily grief and vulnerability can be exploited.
Right.
Especially within a society obsessed with power and wealth.
That's a very astute observation.
Good.
And this sets the stage for an even bigger showdown.
Between Madame Chermedy?
Between Madame Chermedy and Germaine.
All right.
But before we get to all that, there's another key character we need to introduce.
Okay.
Gaston de Vitré.
Ooh, a new character. I'm sensing a love triangle brewing.
You're catching on quick.
Gaston is a
young man, a family friend of the Villaneras, who arrives at the Villa Dandolo and is instantly smitten with Germaine.
Oh.
His arrival creates this interesting dynamic where Don Diego, who was initially indifferent, suddenly finds himself drawn to his wife, while another man openly admires her.
And what about Germaine? How does she react to all this attention?
She blossoms. Remember, she's in this beautiful environment. Her health is improving. And she's finally receiving genuine admiration.
Right.
It's a stark contrast to the life she left behind in Paris, where she was viewed as a burden and a means to an end.
So she's experiencing a sense of agency and self-worth that she hasn't felt before.
Exactly.
This is a major turning point for Germaine.
Absolutely.
And this newfound confidence further complicates things for Don Diego.
It does.
He's no longer just fulfilling a duty.
He's experiencing jealousy, a real fear of losing her.
These are emotions he never thought he'd feel, especially for a woman he married out of obligation.
Right.
This whole situation is getting pretty messy.
It is.
And I bet About has another twist up his sleeve.
You know it.
Just when you think you have a grasp on where the story's heading.
About throws you a curveball.
What is it?
News arrives in Corfu that Madame Chermedy has died in Paris.
Hold on. Died. But we just talked about her scheming and manipulating the Duke. How is this even possible?
But that's the brilliance of About's writing.
Okay.
You see, Madame Chermedy's death is a carefully constructed lie.
A ruse.
A ruse she's orchestrated to manipulate events from the shadows.
So she's playing the long game.
She is.
Faking her own death to further her agenda?
Exactly.
This woman is ruthless.
She's a master manipulator, that's for sure.
And her supposed death has a huge impact on the other characters.
Especially Germaine and Don Diego.
They react with
a mix of relief and sadness. Thinking they're free from her scheming.
Little do they know.
Little do they know.
Oh my gosh, the suspense is killing me.
I know, right?
I need to know what happens next.
Don't worry, we'll unravel the rest of this tangled web soon enough.
But for now, let's pause here and let you, our listener, soak it all in.
What are your initial thoughts on these characters and their motivations?
Yeah, take a moment to ponder the complexities of Germaine so far.
When we come back,
we'll reveal Madame Chermedy's true plan, the unraveling of the Duke, and the ultimate fate of all our characters.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Welcome back. Last time we left you on a cliffhanger.
Madame Chermedy, the master manipulator.
She had supposedly died.
But we know she's actually playing the long game, right?
You got it. While everyone else believes she's gone.
Madame Chermedy's death actually intensifies the Duke's obsession with her.
Oh, wow.
He sinks deeper into a delusional state, convinced she's still alive and needs his protection.
It's tragic when you think about it.
It is.
About really captures the Duke's descent into madness.
Fueled by
grief, guilt.
And, of course, Madame Chermedy's manipulations.
It makes you question.
Is he truly in love with her?
Or is it something else entirely?
That's a great question. Yeah. And it speaks to the complexities of the Duke's character.
Remember those runts he gave to Madame Chermedy?
Oh, yes.
They were basically like long-term bonds.
A significant financial asset in those days.
It turns out she never actually sold them.
Really?
So she was holding on to them as leverage.
Exactly.
This woman was always thinking 10 steps ahead.
She understood their value.
Not just as a financial safety net.
But as a way to maintain her control over the Duke.
Wow.
And that control becomes even more crucial when the Duke, in a moment of delusion, confesses to his friend, Baron de Sanglay,
that he gave away 1 million francs to Madame Chermedy.
1 million francs?
That's an enormous sum. How does the Baron react to this confession?
He's understandably concerned.
Yeah.
This confession, along with the Duke's increasingly erratic behavior, makes it clear that he's no longer capable of managing his own affairs.
It's a heartbreaking fall from grace for a man who was once so powerful and respected.
It is.
So what happens to the Duke? Does he lose everything?
Essentially, yes.
Okay.
The Baron, trying to salvage what's left of the Duke's fortune, takes control of his finances.
Okay.
He tries to bring the Duke back into the fold of Parisian society, hoping to restore some sense of normalcy.
But it's too late for that, isn't it?
Unfortunately, you're right.
Yeah.
Damage is done.
Madame Chermedy's manipulations have taken their toll.
The Duke's mind is fractured.
And his grip on reality
slips further each day.
He becomes fixated on finding Madame Chermedy, convinced she's in danger and needs his protection.
It's a tragic manifestation of his grief and guilt.
This obsession must lead to some drastic actions.
It does.
What does he do?
Driven by his delusion, he ends up following Mantoux one night.
Suspecting
the servant is going to meet Madame Chermedy.
Okay.
This leads him to her villa in Paris.
Remember, he doesn't know she's actually in Corfu at this point.
Right.
Wait, hold on. Didn't we leave Madame Chermedy in Corfu?
We did.
What's she doing back in Paris?
That's the beauty of how, the weaves together these different timelines.
Okay.
While the Duke is spiraling in Paris.
Madame Chermedy,
believing her plan to poison Germaine, has succeeded.
Oh.
Decides to return to Paris.
She's hoping to reclaim her position in society and secure her son's future now that she thinks Germaine is out of the picture.
That's right.
So just to be clear.
She thinks Germaine is dead.
And that she's free to waltz back into Parisian society.
Precisely.
Okay.
But little does she know that her plan has backfired spectacularly.
And Germaine is very much alive and thriving in Corfu.
Meanwhile, the Duke, in his delusional state, breaks into Madame Chermidy's villa, thinking he's saving her from some imagined threat.
This is so suspenseful. I can barely contain myself.
What happens when he gets inside?
Yeah.
Get ready for a shocking twist. The Duke, fumbling in the dark, stumbles upon Madame Chermidy's body.
He initially thinks she's asleep, but she's not. She's dead.
She is.
Dead. But Mantoux was supposed to poison Germaine, not Madame Chermidy. What happened?
This is where About delivers one of the most unexpected revelations in the novel.
Okay.
Madame Chermidy, the master manipulator, the schemer, the woman who seemed invincible, has taken her own life.
Suicide. But why? It doesn't seem like her to give up so easily.
Her motivations are left somewhat open to interpretation.
Okay.
But About provides some clues. It's possible that the weight of her actions,
the guilt over what she put Don Diego and her son through,
became too much to bear. Or maybe seeing Don Diego genuinely happy with Germaine, she realized the futility of her schemes and chose this final, desperate act.
It's a sobering reminder that even the most cunning and manipulative individuals can be consumed by their own choices.
That's right.
But what happens next? Who discovers her body?
Madame Chermidy's loyal servant, Tass. She finds her lifeless in a pool of blood. And guess who she finds babbling incoherently beside the body?
The Duke?
The Duke.
Oh no, this is the disaster waiting to happen.
It's a perfect storm of misunderstandings and tragic circumstances.
And authorities arrive.
They see the Duke's erratic behavior,
the bloody knife,
and jump to conclusions.
They arrest him, charging him with Madame Chermidy's murder.
They do.
So the Duke, who was already mentally fragile, is now accused of murder. This is too much.
That's a lot.
What about Germaine and Don Diego? How do they react to this news?
They're devastated, of course.
First by the news of Madame Chermidy's death.
And then by the Duke's arrest.
They know he's innocent.
But how do you prove that when the accused is in such a fragile mental state?
This seems like an impossible situation.
It does.
Is there any hope for the Duke?
There's one person who might be able to help.
Who?
Dr. Lebris, the family physician.
Ah, the family physician.
He's the one who understands the Duke's mental state and the complexities of the situation.
So Dr. Lebris becomes the unlikely hero.
You could say that.
He pieces together the events of that night,
recognizing the Duke's delusion,
and realizing that Madame Chermidy's death was likely self-inflicted.
Exactly.
Is that enough to exonerate the Duke? Will he be set free?
Abouter doesn't explicitly state this,
Fine.
But he leaves us with a strong implication.
Okay.
The doctor's testimony, coupled with the lack of any real motive on the Duke's part, would likely lead to the charges being dropped.
Right.
However, the trauma of the event, the arrest, and the realization of Madame Chermidy's death leaves the Duke permanently scarred.
So even if he's clear of the charges, he's still a broken man.
Yes, tragic.
He descends further into madness,
requiring constant care and attention.
He becomes a shell of his former self.
A tragic victim of his own vulnerabilities and Madame Chermidy's manipulations.
This is so heartbreaking.
It is.
What about Germaine? How does she cope with all this tragedy?
Germaine, despite everything she's been through, shows incredible resilience.
Okay.
She grieves the loss of her father, but she also understands that he was a victim of his own delusions.
Okay.
She even finds it in her heart to forgive Madame Chermidy.
Recognizing the complexities of her motivations and the tragic path she chose.
Exactly.
That's a powerful display of compassion and understanding.
It is.
It seems Germaine has come a long way from the sickly, passive girl we met at the beginning of this story.
Absolutely.
And this inner strength is even more apparent in her relationship with Don Diego.
The events surrounding Madame Chermidy's death and the Duke's unraveling bring them closer together.
They find solace in each other.
Their bond forged in shared grief and a newfound understanding.
It's a beautiful, albeit bittersweet, development in their relationship. They found love and happiness.
But it's overshadowed by the darkness that has surrounded them.
And that's a key theme that About explores throughout the novel.
The duality of life.
The coexistence of joy and sorrow.
Love and loss.
Even in the face of tragedy.
There can be redemption, forgiveness, and the enduring power of love.
Okay, I'm ready to hear how it all ends.
What happens to Germaine and Don Diego?
Do they stay in Corfu?
Or do they go back to Paris? They make a pivotal decision you might not expect.
What's that?
They leave the Villa Dandolo.
Okay.
And embark on a sea voyage back to France.
Back to Paris. After everything that happened,
yeah.
I'm surprised they'd want to return to a place
filled with so much pain.
Yeah.
It's not just about returning to Paris.
Yeah.
Think of it more as a symbolic journey.
Okay.
They're choosing to move forward.
Leaving the ghosts of the past behind.
Embracing a future that they get to define for themselves.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like they're sailing toward a fresh start.
Exactly.
But there's one loose end we haven't addressed.
Little Gomez.
Don Diego's son with Madame Chermedy.
Right.
What happens to him?
This is where the novel takes a really heartwarming turn.
Okay, Germaine.
Demonstrating incredible compassion.
And defying the societal norms of the time. Embraces Gomez as her own.
Wow. She could have easily seen him as a threat.
Right.
A reminder of Don Diego's past and a potential rival for his affections. Instead, she welcomes him into the fold.
It's amazing.
That's a powerful statement about the transformative power of love and forgiveness.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Germaine recognizes that Gomez is innocent.
A victim of his parents' choices.
A victim of his parents' choice.
She sees a child who needs love and stability.
And she's willing to provide that for him.
So Germaine, who started this journey as a sickly young woman in a marriage of convenience,
ends up finding strength and purpose as a mother figure to the child who could have jeopardized her position.
Right.
It's a beautiful testament to her growth.
And the unconventional ways
that families can form.
The families can form, yeah.
Don Diego, witnessing Germaine's selflessness.
And the love she extends to his son falls even more deeply in love with her.
He sees her strength.
Her resilience and her kind heart.
Okay, I can't help but smile at this.
Me too.
After all the darkness and manipulation.
There's a glimmer of light and hope for these characters.
They return to France as a newly formed family.
Ready to face whatever challenges lie ahead.
But does about give us any hints about what awaits them in Paris?
He leaves that part open to interpretation.
Allowing us
to imagine the possibilities.
Yeah.
We know they faced immense challenges and emerged stronger and more united.
There's a definite sense of hope for them.
Of a brighter future filled with love and family.
It's a satisfying ending, even if it's a bit ambiguous. It's about inviting us to consider how their story might unfold.
I think so.
Will Germaine's health continue to improve?
Will Don Diego finally be free from the shadows of his past?
Will Gomez find peace and acceptance in this new family?
Those are excellent questions.
And I think wants us to ponder them.
He does.
He encourages us to think about the power of forgiveness, the resilience of the human spirit,
and the complexities of love and family.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Edmond about Germaine,
what are some key takeaways you hope our listener will walk away with?
This novel, though set in the 19th century, explores themes that are timeless.
Love, loss, betrayal, and redemption.
It's a reminder that appearances can be deceiving.
And there's often more to a story than meets the eye.
About encourages us to delve deeper, to consider the motivations behind people's actions.
And to approach each other with empathy and understanding.
It's like he's saying, don't judge a book by its cover.
Applies not only to literature,
but to life itself.
We should always strive to see the nuances, the complexities, and the humanity in each other.
Well said.
And on that note,
we've reached the end of our exploration of Germaine.
I hope you, our listener, found this journey as thought-provoking and captivating as we did.
Before we say goodbye,
we'd like to leave you with one final thought.
Given everything we've learned about Madame Chermedy, Don Diego, and all the other players in this drama,
can we truly judge their actions as simply right or wrong?
Or is there a gray area where morality becomes more complex?
That's a fascinating question for you to ponder.
We encourage you to share your thoughts, your interpretations, and your questions with us.
We're always eager to hear your perspective.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Germaine.
We hope this has sparked your curiosity.
And perhaps inspired you to revisit this classic novel or explore other works by Edmond about.
Until next time.
Happy reading.